it's Miss Jessica again, and welcome to day 18 of our November daily draw. Now for today, we are going to be making fall flowers. These are a couple different types of flowers that I found, but of course there's many more. So as we're drawing today, feel free to add any kind of fall flower that you know. And remember to think of our color scheme. So yellows, oranges, reds, and a little bit of green is going to look perfect. Let's go ahead and get started with the drawing. So I want you guys to grab your piece of paper, whatever you might be using today, and turn it up and down vertical. And go ahead and write number 18 at the top. Now before we start to draw, I want to let everyone know that we're going to be using watercolors today, and then when it dries, we'll be adding color pencil on top. Now since we have to wait for our watercolor to dry, once you paint, I want you to pause the video, maybe even come back later, wait an hour or so, and then do the rest of this video. It's really important because you can't add color pencil to wet paper. Alright, let's go ahead and start with just the drawing. Grab your pencils, but like always, I'll be using my Sharpie. And let's begin with this big C shape we're going to put on our paper. This is kind of like a ring of some sort. This is a design people can make when they add their flowers. And so we're going to do this so we can build all of our flowers on top of it. So we're going to draw a nice huge letter C on our paper, as big as you can. Now make sure you're using your pencil because we will be erasing a lot of this line. Now we're going to focus on our main flower, which is our sunflower. Sunflowers are everywhere during fall. So we're going to start right about the middle and the back and draw a big circle right on top of our line. Now since I'm using Sharpie, I can't erase. Every time I need you to erase something, I'm going to use this red marker. And any part you see with red on it is where you're going to erase your pencil line. So please go ahead and add the circle and then erase that line inside. Now we're going to turn this into a sunflower. Sunflowers have lots of petals, many layers. So let's just go ahead and begin. We're going to draw these petals. They're almost like leaf shapes. We're just going to add those all the way around. And in order to make those look as even as we can, as you guys go around, don't be afraid to turn your paper. So that way you can make nice straight petals. If you run out of room, you can just stop the petal. You don't want to make tiny ones, but if you can't see all of it, just let it go off the edge of the paper. This is called cropping, and artists use it all the time to show that your object is much bigger than your paper is. But if you don't need to worry about it, just keep adding petals. Make them nice and big. This is our main flower that we're going to focus on in the middle. So go ahead and finish up. Remember, this is a video, so anytime you need to pause, please do so and just press play when you're ready to move on with me. Now that we have our first row, we're going to do a second row of petals. So in between each one, you're just going to draw a triangle shape. Or you can even make it look a little bit more like a pointed leaf shape, whatever you would like to do. So again, if you need to turn your paper as you go, in between, just add those triangles or a leaf shape. And if you notice you're getting to the end of your paper, just let it go off. Don't make tiny petals. And that's going to be it for our flowers, or petals for our flower here, because if we keep adding more and more, we'll run out of room and we can't add anything else. So please go ahead and finish that up. Now the second flower for fall we're going to make is my favorite flower ever. It's called an anemone. It's kind of like the sea plant, which is where it gets its name. So there's a dark center, white petals, and then these little tiny black spiky looking things. They're not spiky, they just look like it, come out the middle, and that's how it gets its name, anemone. So we're going to add those as well. We're going to go to the right side, so we're underneath our C, above our flower, and we're going to draw a circle for the center of the anemone. Notice it's really close to our flower. We're going to do some overlapping, which means things are on top of each other. So don't worry, just try your best today. Once you get your circle, I want you guys to draw two diagonal lines and connect it with a curve. That is our first petal for the anemone. Now watch close. When I make my second petal, two more diagonal lines, notice how they're not close to my first ones. And I'll connect that together. Leave some space in between. But go ahead and add some more diagonal line. Oh, that's my sunflower. Stop when you get to the sunflower and just try to go around it. Let's add one more, two diagonal lines. Now connect it together because I can't see the rest of the petal, so just leave it. Please go ahead and finish. In between each petal, so around 4, you're going to just draw a wavy line. Anemones have wavy petals that are behind the straighter looking ones. Now, we are also going to be adding those spiky lines. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil and you're just going to draw some long lines going all the way around like so. And you can add some more if you want to. Now don't worry, we will be tracing these with a Sharpie, so maybe don't add so many right this second. You can always add more later. Let's go ahead and move on to our second anemone. Now again, if you need to finish, take your time, press pause, but let's jump down to the bottom now, underneath, on the outside of our C, and drawing the center again, just like a circle, nice and close to our sunflower. And just like before, we're going to draw our 2 diagonal lines and our curved line to connect it together. So let's go ahead and draw 4 of those. Leaving some space, 2 more diagonal lines, connect them together. 2 more diagonal lines, connect those together. Now, I only have enough room for about 3, so I'm just going to leave it 3, but if you have room for 1 more, add that as well. And just draw your wavy lines to connect those petals together. And I'm going to hold off on adding those spiky lines, but remember, you are just going to draw some in just a little bit. Let's actually add those with our Sharpie and a little bit later. All right, now we are going to add 1 more flower. It's called a cornflower. Now cornflowers comes in all different shapes, even sizes, but the kind that we're going to do has a black center with white petals. But they also have some with blackish brown center and yellow petals, kind of like a sunflower. So if you would like to look up some fall flowers to get inspired, please do. So we're going to go right in between our sunflower and the anemone on the outside of the C. And this is where we're going to add the cornflower. We're going to start by drawing a sideways rainbow, or like a C. It's just going to float there. And then I'm going to draw 2 petals, 1 on the left and 1 on the right. Then underneath, draw 2 more, 1 and 2. And that is how we draw our anemone. Now to show that it's connected to our wreath, I'm going to go between my petals and just draw a curved line down to touch the sunflower. That way I can tell, oh yes, that is part of this little hanging bouquet. Now we're going to draw 1 more of those. We're going to jump down to the bottom between our sunflower and the bottom anemone, and it's just going to sit inside of our C this time. So we're going to draw a little backwards C. Again, we're going to add our 2 petals, 1 and 2. You can go right over anything in your way. And just draw 2 more underneath, 1 and 2, just like before. And if you need to, draw a curved line to touch the sunflower so we can see the stem. Now I have something to erase. So again, anytime you see a line inside or you see some red, go ahead and erase that line. We don't want anything inside of our petals. Wonderful, guys. Please make sure to take your time and add as many as you want. Maybe you want another anemone, maybe you want another cornflower or 2. But we aren't done. We still have a few more things to add, like leaves. And we're going to put a little bit of wheat inside. Wheat is what we use to make different things like food and bread. And so that's definitely popular because it grows during this time as well. Let's start with some vines. Our vines are going to begin by our sunflower, and they're going to curve up and down all the way to the end and stop. So it's going around the C, up and down, and stop. So go ahead and do that on the top and the bottom. Now along that vine, I want you guys to go ahead and add some little tiny leaves. I'm just going to do top, bottom, like a pattern. And same thing on the bottom. Have fun with your leaves, make them kind of small. I don't have one. You don't need a whole lot of those, just a couple going all the way around there. Let's make some larger leaves as well. So we gotta fill in some of these empty spaces we see. So we're gonna jump up above our sunflower, and I want you guys to draw a nice big leaf, kind of peeking out from underneath, and add your line in the middle. Now we're going to do 1 more of those. It's kind of hanging out right up above here. I'm going to start on the big C shape, drawing 1 more really big leaf, adding my line in the middle, and adding in our curved line right in the middle. Now we can start to add the wheat and then some smaller, maybe fall colored inspired leaves. Let's go up to the top next to our biggest leaf here. Now again, I'm going to say it one more time, take your time. If you feel like you still need more time to make your leaves, you didn't like how they looked, they were a little too small, pause and take your time to work on that some more. There's no wrong way, but just trying to figure out the placement of all of our fall flowers. Now for our wheat, we're just going to start right here next to the leaf and the cornflower, anywhere you have some room, and we're just going to draw a curved line up, like so. And then we're just going to add some lines that slant up for the top and slant out for the bottom. You can also add these little curved lines on the left and the right. And this will complete the little wheat. One more time on the bottom, right here by our sunflower and the cornflower, curved line down. Same thing, we're going to draw slanted lines for the top and slanted lines for the bottom. Maybe a couple more. Adding in those little rainbow lines, top and bottom, to make it look like the wheat. Now if you want to add a couple more here and there, you're totally welcome to, but I'm going to also draw some teeny tiny leaves. So right up here in this space between my leaf and my wheat here, now if you don't have space, that's okay, you don't have to add it. I'm just going to draw a little curved line with some lines coming off of it, like a little branch, and adding some tiny leaves at the end. I'm going to do the exact same thing in two more places, so again, you can join me or you can just wait. I'm going to put some down here above the wheat, some little flowers, or at least, leaves. And at the bottom, coming from my sunflower, some more little leaves. All right, and that for me is the end of my draw. Now, wonderful job, guys. I know that was a lot of work, but I want you to go ahead and finish that up. If you want to Google some more fall flowers, feel free. You can add a couple more things, but generally we want this to be really busy and nothing at the ends. But I'm going to leave that up to you. Now, we are going to begin our watercolor step. And remember, we need it to dry completely before we add our color pencil. So let's go ahead. First, grab your Sharpie and trace everything, just like you see. Now, make sure to erase any lines you don't want, but there wasn't very many. All right, go ahead, press pause, trace all of your flowers. All right, guys, so hopefully you've paused and you've traced everything, because we're going to begin the watercolor step. So we're going to grab our palette and we're going to grab a bucket. Now there's one more thing if you have it. It is the lid of your watercolors or some sort of plastic mixing for watercolors. I'm going to lay it right here next to me and I'm going to use this a little bit for some colors. If you don't have it, don't worry. You guys can also use any material, not just watercolors, but if you're following along, let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to use a medium-sized brush first, dip, wipe, and I'm going to grab some brown for the middle of my sunflower. And we're just going to paint right in the middle over everything. Hopefully there's no line in the way anymore because you erased it. Now that's going to be pretty much all the brown we'll need, so you can just clean your brush when you're done and let that dry. Now clean it really good because now we're going to take yellow, maybe a little less, and we're going to paint all the sunflower petals. So you don't have to worry about making it look perfect because we're painting every single one yellow. Be careful though, because if you go on that cute little anemone here, he's going to stay white. And so we don't want any yellow on him. So keep just dip, wipe, 1, 2, 3. Grab your yellow. Now we want to try to get less water here and a little bit more color. We do want it to stay light. So if you notice your petals are getting this super dark yellow, make sure you add a little more water when you dip it in. And if you notice they're so light you can barely see the yellow, you need a white after every time you get water, otherwise there's just too much. Spread your petals around. If it gets too dark, you can also take a towel and lay it on top and press, and it will pick up some of that watercolor. Alright, so I'm just finishing up my petals here, but please make sure to pause as always finish painting those petals, and just press play when you're ready to move on to the next flower. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, and we're going to stop to do real fast now, before we paint, is our anemones and our cornflowers. Grab those Sharpies again, and we're going to fill in the whole middle of the anemones. That's the one with the spiky lines. And if you haven't added your spiky lines yet, please use your Sharpie now and draw those lines almost like rays of sun all the way around. Now, to add just a little bit of extra detail, you can also make some tiny circles all around, now not just the flower, but where those spiky lines are. These are the ends of them. So just add a few, not everywhere, but just spread around. All right. And we are going to color the tops of the cornflowers with our Sharpie, coloring it completely black. Now, the reason we're doing this with Sharpie is when we paint over Sharpie, nothing happens to it. But if we did it with marker, it would bleed that color all over and we'd get black or watercolor mixed in with the colors that we don't want to be dark, like a yellow. So make sure to use your Sharpie and don't use watercolor because then it'll just mix all over with the rest of the color. So use that Sharpie if you have it. All right, let's do some more things. Taking our medium brush again, great job. We're going to do some dark green, and we're going to paint all the large leaves, not the small ones. We're going to make those look a little bit different. All the large leaves. Again, I'm using my medium brush. We have 3 large leaves. Maybe you have a couple more you added. So just paint all the larger ones with that green, being extra careful near those white petals. So cornflower and anemone will both be white. Good, so that was our 3 green leaves. Now I'm going to switch to a smaller brush, or just use the tip of your brush. We're going to get a little bit of light green, and I only want you to paint these small leaves light green. The reason I want you to only do these and not these guys is because they're going to be more of an orange, like a fall color. So again, just these leaves kind of wrapping around on our vines are going to be a light green. So notice how I'm trying my best just to stay inside, getting all of those leaves. We're going to use color pencils to make them a little brighter, so don't worry, keep it nice and light. Now, like I said before, we are going to use more of an orange. So I'm going to take this light orange here, and I'm going to paint each tiny leaf that's in the middle here. If you prefer to make these green, you are more than welcome to. But a little pop of this orange just really makes this picture look even better. So I definitely encourage you guys to try, but if you feel way better doing green, you may. Now we're going to have to do some mixing here. If you don't have a palette like I do, it's okay, try your best. You can always just do it with color pencil and don't paint it now. That would be my suggestion. But we're going to make a color for our wheat. So I'm going to use my brush to put some water on my palette, so just pure water. Then I'm going to use my small brush and I'm going to take some yellow and mix it in with that water. Clean that brush and get a little bit of brown and mix my brown. Now my yellow and brown, a little more yellow, is going to create a tan, and that's what I want to use for my wheat. So once you get a good color, go ahead and you're going to paint each one of those little pieces of wheat there. It can stay light, that's all right. You're not doing the spiky lines of the wheat, just those curved lines on the top and the bottom. And that's going to be it for the wheat. So please finish that up. Use your paint color that you mixed, or maybe just a yellow if you can't mix anything, or wait for color pencil. Now the last thing we need to do is we're going to do some more, now not mixing, but lightening. The more water you have, the lighter your watercolor gets. And we need to make a gray. So I put lots of water in here, and I took a little tiny bit of black, tiny bit. Now black is very dark, and if you add a lot, it's just going to immediately turn super dark black. But we want it to stay a light gray, so that's a pretty good color. I'm going to use that grayish color, and on my anemones, I'm going to add just half with gray, maybe a little more black. So again, I'm just going to take half of it and paint it gray on each petal. Make it a little lighter. There we go, each petal a little gray. I'm just doing on the left side of each petal. And then I'm going to move to my bottom ones and the same thing. So choose one side and just add a little bit of that gray shading to each petal. This is how we shade something that is white. Now for the cornflowers, we're just going to do underneath. So I'm just going to paint the bottom of each petal, leaving the top white. Be very careful. We can't go back and erase watercolor. Alright guys, now that's the end of the watercolor step. So like I said before, we need to let this dry completely before you move on to the color pencil shading. So this is a great time to clean your brushes and your water. Clean out your mixing palette. You can just take a wet towel and you can just wipe up the color. This is watercolor, so water will wipe it away. And that's all clean. But please make sure to not move on with me until you are completely done, or excuse me, until it's completely dry. Like this is still pretty wet, so what I'm going to have you do is please pause and press play when you're ready, and then I'll show you all the color pencil steps. Or come on back, and when you're done, we'll try it one more time with some color pencil. Alright, so if you're back here joining us, that means your watercolor's completely dry and you're ready to use color pencil. So, I have this guy here. This one has no more lines in the middle of my sunflower, so we can see much, much better. Grab your color pencils, and we're going to be adding some shading. We're going to start right here in the middle. I want you guys to grab a brown. This is going to be super, super fun. We're going to swirl our color pencil. So you're going to hold it like a pencil, and you're just going to start on the outside, and you're just going to swirl your lines all the way around, just like so. So we're going to go around the outside, and then we're just going to keep moving our way in. Now this is important to not scribble. I'm doing a nice circular motions, adding layers. This is supposed to look like the seeds that are inside the middle. Wonderful. Now we're going to add some shading to it, so I want you to keep your brown, and this is a little advanced, but try it out. We're just going to shade the bottom corner here. I'm not pressing hard, I'm pressing soft, and I'm just kind of adding in some brown shading, darkening it a little tiny bit. You may cover some of your swirls, that's okay. Just try a little shading. Once you're done, grab a black color pencil. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to add some more swirls, but not as much this time. Just a little bit. Adds a little darkness to it. And you can even add a little bit of black shading towards the bottom. And it just darkens that a little more. So have some fun. If you want to add a little bit more of each, you can. Maybe you want a little more brown swirls in there, you can go back and add some more. You just want to make it look like those seeds in the middle of the sunflower. So go ahead and finish that up. If you need a pause, you may, but just go ahead and add a little bit of color. Now we're going to move on to our petals, and I want you guys to try to find maybe a yellow-orange. So it's not so light. If you don't, you can just grab an orange or even just a yellow. So for each petal, we're going to add some shading here to just the left side. A little hard to tell, but see how I'm just going to fill in half of those petals. We're just going to do the front ones. So again, if you need to turn, we're just doing half and just that first set of petals. So I'm going to go all the way around. And the more layers you add, the darker that will look. So if you want it to look a little lighter, just don't add as many layers. All the way around. Job, just keep going. Those back petals, we're actually just going to shade the whole thing in much, much darker. Now you guys can add as much shading as you would like. I'm going to leave that up to you as the artist, but the more shading, the more realistic this looks, and that's kind of what we're going for, is a very realistic look for our flowers today. Now using the same color, you're just going to very lightly shade in that back petal, the whole thing. It's in the background, so it's going to look much darker than the petals in the front. So we're just going to take the same color, fill the whole thing in. Please make sure to sharpen any of your pencils that you need to. Dull color pencils do not work very well. So again, just lightly filling that in. And we're going to continue with some more shading on the rest of our object. So awesome job, guys. Sunflower is really important because it is the first flower everyone sees. It's the lightest color. So take your time. Maybe you want to add a little more orange to some parts. You can. But I'm going to leave that up to, again, my artists out there. Now, we don't need to do anything to our white flowers. They're already shaded with our gray. So I'm going to jump to my green leaves. You can do the same thing where you're just going to shade half. So I'm going to shade in just the left side of each leaf. Or the bottom, the left or bottom, whatever is there. For this one's going to be the bottom. Just adding a little bit of dark color. Same thing for our lighter leaves. You can use the same dark green, and you can just do the bottoms of each leaf. Press nice and soft. We don't want to cover all of the color, just the bottom, leaving the top nice and light. Great, guys, this is going to be our last thing to do, and that's for our orange leaves. Now, if you made them green, just stick with some green, but you're going to take an orange and same thing, shade the bottom. Each one making it just a little bit darker, a little even brighter for the bottom of the leaf. And my friends, that is our last step today. So have fun. If you made some extra things, maybe different flowers or more of them, please now take the time to shade those in, just like how I taught you. Spend a little extra time. If you want to add some more shading, that's going to be up to you. But awesome job, great. I'll see you guys again soon, and have a wonderful day. Bye.